Aloha and welcome to Hawaii Together on the ThinkTech Hawaii Broadcast Network. I'm Keli'i Akina, your host. Just delighted to have a friend here today who recently ran for trustee of Kauai in the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. And we're going to learn a lot about what he learned in the whole process. His name is Kamealohas Smith. I'm delighted that many new candidates tried out for OHA Trustee positions this year in the 2020 elections. And as many of you know, I'm a trustee at large in the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, but I'm not here to talk about my position today. I'm here to interview somebody who aspired to becoming a trustee and throwing his hat into the rink and trying public service out. Please welcome to our program today, my good friend from the island of Kauai, Kamealoha Smith. Kamealoha, aloha, welcome to the program.
Hi, aloha everybody. It's Kamealoha. I'm coming to you from Anahola, Kauai. It's my backyard. You might hear goats and pigs, sorry.
Well, that's wonderful. Kamealoha, just tell our audience a little bit about your background. You're a Kauai boy from the beginning, I think. And what is it that you do out there on the island?
Yeah, I was born in California. My father was a merchant marine. His family and all of his mo'uku auhau and his genealogy comes from the island of Kauai, here on Anahola, and then also Wainiha and Kalalau Valley. So we moved back when my dad finally got his Hawaiian homes in Anahola. I was about 12 or 13 years old. So I was raised here in Anahola on the homestead, and I went to Kapaa school. After Kapaa school, I went to college, joined the service. I mean, I did a lot of different things, and I've been back home now for about 10 years. Prior to coming home to Kauai, I was in Hilo on Hawaii Island, teaching at one of the Hawaiian immersion schools, Ka'umeki Ka'eo Keokaha. I work for a nonprofit, the Hanalei River Heritage Foundation. We're based at the Mulivai, or the mouth of the Hanalei River. We're supposed to be, but with COVID and everything, we had to adjust and change some of our project sites. So I work in resource management. So what that means is that we do a lot of work in inventorying the natural and the cultural resources on our trails, in the waterways, along the coastline. And usually when people do that type of work, if you work for like a state or federal organization, you create research reports, right? And you create information and collect data and share that information, share that data. What we do is we create educational materials. So Hawaiian moon calendars. We also create booklet, children's books and things like that. So whatever I do, I'm always trying to figure out ways for that to have a direct impact and a direct connection to, education. For sure.
Well, Kamealoha, you certainly have a rich background in terms of experiences and credentials. You've done military service, you hold a master's degree, you speak Hawaiian and Japanese and English and whatever else, and you have worked in community organizations with the people, including charities for food distribution and so forth. And you and I have done a little bit of that together. And I recall those early discussions when we were bantering a bit about the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, tossing around the idea that maybe you could make a difference. What motivated you to decide to come from private life and go after a public position in an elective office at OHA?
I just felt like it was the right time. There were a lot of issues that I was concerned about in the Hawaiian community and the larger community. And one thing I always try to do, and I don't know how to do it correct, I guess, if that's the right word to say, but I'm always trying to figure out ways to improve relations between the Hawaiian community and the larger community of Hawaii. Tourism, a big thing in our economy, and we figure playing a big role in the visitor industry. So I wanted a way to try to figure out a way to continue to improve that relationship. But I also wanted to affect policies, because there's a lot of policies that are made at OHA that could positively impact our community. And I know if I had the opportunity, that's what I wanted to work on. I really wanted to work on those things that would thought could make like a huge change and make huge impact in our community. Yeah.
You know, ever since I've known you, that's been on your heart. You've always talked about making an impact in the community, serving the people, working with individuals and groups to uplift the Hawaiian people. And you care not only about the Hawaiian people, but all people who are out there. What would you say is one of the deepest concerns or needs of the Hawaiian people at this time today that really needs to be addressed?
Um, you know, it's housing. It's not having enough access to opportunities to, if you're in a rent, if you're trying to rent, there's not a lot that people can afford. And if you're trying to buy, there's not a lot that people can afford. And so I think housing ends up being a huge distraction for a lot of people because they have to put so much effort into making a certain amount of money just so that they can pay some real basic, you know, uh, bills in the home, including the rent and utilities. It's just so expensive in Hawaii. So I think housing is huge, and just anything associated with housing costs, your electric bill. How do people do it? It's either you got to be a millionaire or do the opposite. Some people, I don't want to say they give up, but it's challenging, and so a lot of people end up being homeless or close to being homeless, or they're sharing 3 4 families in one house. It's just I see that as one of the biggest issues. I think once you don't have a foundation, like a house is a foundation in which you can build your life on. Once that foundation is gone, all you do every day is try to figure out how to get a foundation. And if you don't have one, it's so difficult to focus on other things. Yeah.
You know, the nonprofit you work with has attempted to help educate people so that they could have better opportunities when it comes to earning a living, when it comes to affording the cost of living, and in particular, housing. And you've also been involved in other charities to meet immediate needs.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think needs to be done for the Hawaiian people to really lift them up in terms of cost of living issues such as housing or their own personal economic standing? In fact, what would you promote if you actually were a trustee in the Office of Hawaiian Affairs?
Oh, that's a very good question. I really was hoping to figure out ways to work better with the Department of Hawaiian Homeland. So those people who qualify, at least from a blood quantum perspective, or if they could be beneficiaries if they inherit, if you will, their successors to their family leases. I was looking forward to coming up with creative ways to get people into DHHL housing. I also know that the Office of Hawaiian Affairs has its own land, and perhaps making affordable rentals on those pieces of land that they own would have been a good idea. It still is a good idea. And, I know that the Office of Hawaiian Affairs also has a relationship with all of the different state entities that also have land holdings as well. So it would have been really interesting to see, and it still is interesting to see what kind of partnerships that we can form with other agencies to see if we can open up some of those lands for housing opportunities as well. Um, yeah, so I was really looking forward to focusing a lot of my time and efforts towards building relationships that would have made it easier for us to build affordable housing.
At some point in your own thinking in the last several months or perhaps couple of years, you transitioned from simply being a person who wanted to do what he could do as an individual out there into somebody who wanted really to work with large levels of resources at the governmental level in OHA. I'd be very interested to know how that came about. What really went into your deciding to take the plunge and actually run for office? You may have thought about it a lot, but something must have really been a tipping point, perhaps. What was that?
Food distribution. Quite honestly, this past year when we were doing, a lot of the volunteer work to pass out the meals, to people, I thought to myself, I go, gosh, there's got to be a better way to do this. You know, the CV-19 opened my eyes to some of the shortcomings in government. And I thought, gee, if I'm out here and I'm distributing food and there's an element of politics even associated with distributing food, that there's got to be a better way to do this. So I felt like after what I experienced with some of the politics associated with food distribution, I said to myself, I go, I need to be in there because somebody's not making total decisions, or I guess people don't understand that government, and maybe they don't do this intentionally. I think there's a lot of good people that work for the government as well as good politicians, but I don't think that they realize just how impactful their decisions are. So even in the best of intentions, there's always going to be some kind of impact, you know, whether it's positive or whether it's negative. So I thought to myself, if I were to do food distribution over, I would have really thought through a lot of things, and I would have tried to work with private companies and work with nonprofits to make sure that everything was in place to make for a food distribution that could reach to as many people as possible. That was one thing that was on my mind, and I'm always I know that at OHA, it has a lot of potential. You know, everybody says that OHA has a lot of potential. I've talked with a lot of people who've worked there before, and I myself, throughout the years, have seen that OHA has a lot of potential. And so I was hoping to be able to bring out that potential so that it could realize its potential and really be an asset to Native Hawaiians first and foremost, but then also be an asset to the state. So that whatever social ills are facing in the Hawaiian community, maybe some of that can be taken over by the Office of Hawaiian Affairs to figure out. Because that's, after all, that's what the office exists for. So I was hoping to be a little bit more hands-on. And I thought with my way of doing things and the temperament that I have, you know, that I would have made a difference and would have made some changes at OHA that could have allowed a more productive use of OHA resources and have it directed towards things that would be impactful in the community.
Well, Kamealoha, you're no stranger to working with people to get community goals accomplished. You've been a community organizer, you've worked at government levels as well, but politics and running for office in particular is also competitive. It's pitting yourself out against others. And there were other candidates in this past election for the Kauai seat. One of them was the incumbent who holds the seat. Another one was another challenger. What do you think you brought to the table as a competitor? What made you stand out and make you perhaps unique in your own thinking?
You know, I think the biggest thing is being positive. That was one thing. And then another thing was being fair and showing that in you have to take a stand for some things, but sometimes it's better to take a step back and to say, you know what, I'm really going to study the issues first before I make a commitment one way or another. Yeah. Any of the issues that we're faced with, any of the issues that we're asked about as a trustee, if you make a decision too early to be in support or not in support of something, you know, on the other side, there's somebody that's may not be too happy with your decision. So my thinking throughout the entire process was, whatever decision I made, I have to always deal with the consequences that somebody may not be happy with that. So how do you satisfy both the people that you agree with and how do you satisfy the people that you disagree with? And so my whole goal was to find ways for people who sit on opposite sides of issues to come together and to find some kind of a compromise. And I think that was something that made me different from others, because you know, there's issues that I feel very passionate about personally, but as a trustee, you gotta set aside your personal feelings and you have to think about others and how they're going to be impacted by your decisions. So even if you are totally supportive of issue A, you still have to worry about the people on the other side and how it's going to impact their lives as well. So I
Well,
was
that's
always
a
concerned about, yeah.
very sound philosophy. And sorry to cut you off there. We have to go to a break, but we'll come back and we'll hear more from you. And my guest today is Kamealohas Smith, who ran for the Office of Hawaiian Affairs from the island of Kauai. And we'll be right back on Hawaii Together on the ThinkTech Hawaii broadcast network in just 1 minute. Don't go away.
Aloha, I'm Christine Linders, a physical therapy specialist and the host of Movement Matters. My show is designed to teach you the simplest and most effective treatment strategies to get you out of pain and back to doing what you love. If you or someone you know is having pain in a certain area of the body and would like a free assessment in treatment over media or in person, and then come on the show to talk about it, email us at thinktechmovementmatters@gmail.com. Or if you have a topic you would like to know more about, please email us. My goal is to decrease pain all over the world, inspiring people to take better care of their bodies to enjoy life to the fullest. I look forward to hearing from you.
Well, we're back. Thanks for being here. I'm Keli'i Akina on the ThinkTech Hawaii Together program, and my guest today is Kamealohas Smith. We're going to dive right back into our conversation. Kamealoha, let's do a little bit of anatomy of a political campaign. I mean, this was your first political campaign, and you did pretty well. I mean, for a first-time candidate for office, you got 55,000 plus votes, which is incredible because to become a legislator, you only need maybe 10,000 votes. So that's really a significant amount of publicity, of winning people over and so forth. What did it take to get those votes? What do you think was the biggest thing your campaign did to get your name out there and get known?
I think the biggest thing was social media, the messaging, making sure that whatever I wrote was resonated with people, and they saw that with whatever I said, there was always an opportunity for the most amount of people to participate in whatever I was putting out there. So that helped. Sign waving helped. I went to Honolulu on 3 occasions. I campaigned in Honolulu essentially for about 3 weeks. So that helped as well. And making friends with some of the other candidates, not just in the OHA race, but I also had the opportunity to fellowship and share sign waving duties with other candidates. I really enjoyed myself. I really enjoyed meeting all those people in Honolulu. It was pretty amazing. I'm very grateful to all the people, that I met. They were amazing people.
Well, you were really out there hustling. How did you like the fact that running a campaign also means having to raise money? Was that a lot of fun, or is that a little difficult? It's the first time you probably had to do something like that.
Yeah, I didn't know, I really didn't know what I was doing as far as how to raise funds, to be honest with you. So I know a little bit better now. So the next time, if I should run again, I'm going to make sure that I start earlier, and I'm going to make sure that I have people who can help me out with my campaign. It was last minute, that I decided to run. So I didn't get as much help as I could have gotten. Now I have people that want to help.
You had to have certain messages that went out in social media and in your attempt to become a trustee. What were the messages that you had that worked for you?
I think the message, as funny as it sounds, like I wrote a message to people about the trustees, and writing letters of support for grants. I wrote about that. I also wrote that I wrote another blog, if you will, about keeping in contact with beneficiaries, in CV-19, and how we can use technology to keep everybody connected. Um, so I wrote a lot of things that just were real simple things that trustees could do, that allow people to have appropriate access to trustees and to resources at OHA. A lot of times it's not about the money. It's about being connected and staying connected and being engaged. And so that's what I tried to show everybody, that you can stay engaged with OHA and your trustees. And I tried to think of things that I could do as a trustee that would allow that to happen.
Were there any challenges in getting people to vote in the OHA election? For example, although you got over 50,000 votes, the largest number of votes in the Kauai race were actually blank votes. 220,000 people who went to the ballots or who turned ballots in left the Kauai trustee slot blank. And that's a lot of votes, because had they voted, they would have made a difference in terms of the outcome. And when you think about that, were there any challenges in getting the average person out there to vote, whether they're Hawaiian or not Hawaiian, to actually vote in the OHA race?
Well, I'll be honest with you. The debate is still out there. The jury is still out on that. But here's what I feel. Whose responsibility is it to educate people about the OHA election or any election? And so I would like, I think OHA should spend some time in civic voter education, talking about the Rice versus Cayetano and what the impact of that was on the election. I mean, we might as well, we just have to tell people what happened, with no judgment. And I'm not here to judge whether that was a good decision or a bad decision, but it was a decision that was made. And I think it's important for us to let people know that these decisions were made, and we should educate them about that. But I do think it's a bit unfortunate that Office of Hawaiian Affairs doesn't spend a little bit of time on telling people about that, because everybody has different manawa about it. But I feel it's the law, so if you can vote, vote.
Some people disagree with the fact that OHA is a state government agency, and every voter in the state, whether they're Hawaiian or not, has the right to vote in the election. Did that become a controversial issue in any of your conversations with people?
Not for me. I just didn't make it an issue. You know why? Because we've been living with that particular decision for a long time. And so for me, I just thought of it as just an opportunity to share with people about what they could do to make the Hawaiian community better. And what, since everybody benefits from the Hawaiian community, the tourism industry certainly does. So I feel that if you have an opportunity to vote and to help the Hawaiian community get better, that's kind of the way that I took it. I don't have any control over what the Supreme Court decision was. I just know it's reality, and I think that's just it's reality. So I just try to make sure that people are comfortable, and if they decide not to vote, that's okay too. But I just think people should be given the correct information. That's all.
Another controversial issue for some people was whether or not the 30-meter telescope should be built on Mauna Kea. How did you manage that issue in your campaign?
Well, I was very honest about it. I said that I would be neutral on the issue until, I got in, that way I could find out a little bit more about some of the positive things as well as some of the impacts of TMT. And I try to assure everyone that if it's going to be built, then we got to worry about, if it's going to be built and it does go through and it's built, then we got to worry about the impact of it or with people who disagreed with it. On the other hand, if it's not built, then we got to worry about job displacement, and we have to worry about the economy, because people who work on the Mauna or people who are wanting to work on the Mauna to be a part of the construction process or the decommissioning process. People were looking forward to jobs. So that was one of the things that I was wrestling with. So it doesn't matter which side you pick, people are going to be affected. And I think that as a leader, you have to take that into account and you got to be there for the other people. So that's the message I was trying to get out to people, that I would be there regardless of whether the telescope went for it or didn't go for it, because people on both sides are going to be impacted. So that's how I dealt with that issue. Yeah.
We've come to the end of our program, and I'd like to give you just one final question. You obviously had a vision and a goal in mind in running for office. What would you like to have changed at the Office of Hawaiian Affairs if you had been elected?
Oh goodness. Okay. The biggest thing I wanted to change is just access to resources. I think that there has to be an objective way in which more people can get access to resources, all beneficiaries. So that's what I wanted to change the most, was just make it more fair, make it more objective, make it more transparent, and work on issues of accountability. And also the audit. I want to see the audit go through.
Is this the last we're going to see politically of Kamealohas Smith, or is there something more on the horizon?
Uh, I'm so grateful and so humbled at the votes that I got. And I'm so glad that so many people voted. I really was. I was so thankful. The fact that I didn't win, oh well, that happens. But I was just so humbled that I got as many votes as I did. And I was so grateful to everybody in Hawaii for coming out and voting. It was just amazing, the turnout. Um, so we'll see. I would like to try one more time. I just I feel like some of the issues that I brought up and the way that I handle them resonates with people in Hawaii. So if it
Very
does,
good.
yeah.
Very good. Well, that's a great note to end on, and we're going to see more of Kamealohas Smith. Thank you for being on the program today. Aloha.
Okay, aloha, mahalo for the opportunity to share with everybody. Thank you
you.
so much, Kelly. Aloha.
And to all of our viewers today, we've had Kamealohas Smith, whom I said you will probably be seeing more of in the future. He resides on the island of Kauai. I'm Keli'i Akina for ThinkTech Hawaii's Hawaii Together. Until next time, aloha.
Aloha, ahui ho, malama pono.